Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology podcast featuring tech legend Jake Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. Hey, Saul.
Hi, how are you doing?
Long time no see.
I know. I've listened to a few of your things. I don't remember it getting so hot as it did last.
Well, that was the Q&A. That's only a couple.
That was so fun.
Well, it just goes to show you, everybody's got their way of doing things. So.
Oh yeah.
And are Mitch and Angelika, are they in Tucson or are they busy on the Northeast?
They are busy in the Northeast, getting ready for the conference, unfortunately. Yeah.
Now, Saul, talk to me. You were on a long time ago. I think Mitch and Angelika were on too. NRBS, Northeast Region Biofeedback Society. Did I get that right? Fix me.
That is right. Yeah. So there are regional biofeedback, just like there's the internationals, AAPB, ISNR, and they've sort of floundered in the last few years as everyone else has. So I think at this point there's Florida has its own region, and the NRBS. There was a mid-Atlantic, but we've actually combined with the NRBS. So
now, how about Mitch and Angelika? Did they start it or they took over for somebody?
They took over, yeah. It was really started, I want to say about 20 years ago. It's primarily New York area, and then sort of expanded. There actually was a New England. When I was first training, we had a little regional. I don't even know if we were an official regional, but we used to meet, and then just sort of fell apart. And then we've all joined the NRBS at this point. So,
well, give us a little background on Angelika and Mitch, and then we'll get into you, Saul.
Okay, so Angelika and Mitch Sadar, they are psychologists in Pennsylvania, and they have a neurofeedback and psychological clinic outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And then they got involved with the NRBS. I'm not quite sure how long ago, because it was certainly before I was involved. But yeah, they're well known particularly in the neurofeedback area, particularly now for training. They do a lot of training and supervision, mentoring.
Okay. And you're a member at large. I would think I would be a member at large, or am I extra large?
Oh, well, no, this is no judgment zone.
No judgment.
No, I'm a member of the board of directors, I guess, is what we're called. So we sort of try to keep the thing going along and make some of the decisions about stuff.
So what is the charter about? Like, what is the aim of it? It's a membership. Like, what's the difference between your society and BCIA? You got all these acronyms out there, and
I know there are a lot of them. So the NRBS, I guess starting at the top of the hierarchy, I guess if you want to call it that, organizations like ISNR and AAPB, those are kind of the professional research-based organizations they're international in scope. And the regionals, we were actually regionals we're actually part of AAPB. So it was looking at, okay, let's be more local, let's focus on local interests. And so that's what NRBS does. I mean, we don't have a publication, both ISNR and AAPB have two publications each. We're really focused on the kind of frontline work, if you will. So a lot of the folks who are members, they're clinicians who are just doing it every day. And so a lot of our work kind of reflects that.
And where do we send people to before I forget? Because I'm bad at this. I'll edit it in later, but if somebody wants to find out information, where can they go? Because you'll take people from anywhere, but it just makes sense if you're in the Northeast. Yeah, go there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's nrbs.org.
Okay.
So not too complex.
Okay.
And like you're saying, we actually do draw from around the world at this point. So while we are focused on the Northeast region of the US, we have people who come to our webinars and who are involved from South Africa. There's actually a interesting kind of active group of neuro and biofeedback practitioners there. We have people from Europe, from Asia, who get involved either directly by coming to our webinars, and the conference coming up will be remote and live. It'll be hybrid. And then we do have the podcast, which draws listeners from around the world. I'm sure like yours does as well.
Right, right. So when is the conference and
Yeah.
who's going to be there? Like everybody's in Tucson and we did
Everyone's
our
in
Q
Tucson,
and
right?
yeah, but Jay he's going to chime in on the
He
Friday. Give us the
is.
rundown of everything.
Yeah, so we are meeting the 1st to the 3rd of November. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's, again, like I said, it's hybrid, so you can be there or you can stream it remotely. Jay is going to be doing our keynote on Friday night. And the thing that's a little different about this conference is than the bigger ones is there's just one thing happening at a time. So you don't have to pick and choose. You can kind of all be
Right.
together throughout it. And there's not exactly a theme, but as I was sort of looking through it, I think there's sort of two themes that kind of emerge. One is just doing the work, sort of professional related issues about doing the work. And then there are a few also talks on kind of newer ways of thinking about things or newer approaches. And so Jay's going to kind of start us all off, and he's going to be talking about why would you look at EEG versus quantitative EEG? And of course,
Yeah.
many of us know the answer to that question and know what he's going to say, but it's always worth hearing what he has to say anyway. And during the main day on Saturday, we have a whole bunch of different people coming in. So we have Jessica Ewer, who will be talking about uh, collaborating across professions, and we'll have Harry Campbell and Jenna Prada talk about integrating into schools. And Harry has a lot of experience doing that. He and Mary Jo Sabo ran the Yonkers Project, which brought neurofeedback into public schools. We're going to have Angelica is going to talk about working with insurance companies, which is always an
Oh,
interesting topic. It doesn't sound like it'll be
that's two
interesting, but
days.
yeah, exactly. That's at least 2 days. And we'll have people like Diana Martinez and Leon Morales Cazeta. They're going to be talking about new approaches to autism, to working with people who have autism. We're having a nutritionist come in and talk about the effects of nutrition on health and the EEG. And Penny Jean Gracefire, who's always a great speaker, is going to be talking about neuromodulation uh, uh, neuromodulation techniques in addition to neurofeedback. So it's a really kind of interesting group of people, and I think it'll be a really great conference. It's primarily focused, obviously, on clinicians,
Mhm.
but we actually get a lot of people who are interested, who are either end users or just sort of interested in it. And I think a number of the topics would really appeal to anybody who has some interest in, particularly the neurofeedback, but in modulation in general.
So Saul, what's been going on, let's just say in the last year that you've seen? Anything different coming up? I mean, you're in, the Northeast, I'm in Midwest and
Hmm.
I get my fill of the West Coast enough with all my panel members.
Right, right.
But what are you seeing on the Northeast? And I would love to hear more about the Yonkers project because that's a pretty famous study.
Yeah. Well, I think the new stuff that's coming out is primarily focused more on end users. So I think, and this is primarily technology driven, as a lot of our work is. So I think there's a lot of new equipment that's coming out that's can be used either at home by end users or by paraprofessionals, I suppose, within your clinic, techs or other people who may not be highly trained clinically, but are trained enough. So, you probably know there was recently a system that was FDA approved for PTSD treatment, and that's I think it's called the Prism system, and that's really designed to be used in a clinician's office. It's a turnkey system, so you don't necessarily have to be highly trained in neural feedback to use it. And there's a study going on now on using that system for depression. So I think that that's an area, systems that are really easier to use. And also on the home front, there's certainly a lot more heart rate variability equipment that's being developed for home. The Apple Watch I
Mhm.
think now does heart rate variability. There's a number of other less expensive equipments. There's always the HeartMath's M Wave is sort of the granddaddy of everything, and they've just come out with a new piece of equipment.
Well,
And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
Saul, the two letters I was looking for was like AI. Like, yeah,
Well, yeah, so I think that's going to happen. I think the iMed Sync, that's the South Korean company, they're using some AI in figuring out artifacting and in interpretation. But I actually think Jay had something very interesting to say about AI and the EEG, and that is, if you think of AI as it's a super um, uh, pattern recognizer. And we don't have enough EEGs that are not diagnostic that are out there. So a lot of what we do is descriptive rather than diagnostic. So probably AI would be good at picking up paroxysms and other potential seizure issues, but it may not be there might not be enough data out there for it to really learn to pick up things like anxiety or depression, but it's only a matter of time. I think it'll happen.
well, I was hoping that they were coming along on cleaning up the artifacts because everybody just wants to hit the button and clean it
Yeah,
without looking at
yeah.
it. You can't do that.
Well, I think we had yesterday we had the interesting discussion about that, and I think that's a question. The question that's going to be coming up is how trained do you have to be to do this work? And of course, the fear about AI, in a way, one of the fears anyway, is going to take all our jobs. Um, but
Yeah.
I think there's there's a clinical skill that that has to be integrated, I think, into any of the patterns we recognize or any of the work we do, which probably makes it better. Now, obviously, I'm going to say that I'm a clinician, so
Yeah, yeah.
I have a certain vested interest, but I think we're not there yet with AI. I suspect we will get there, and probably sooner than we might expect, although longer than maybe many people want.
Well, I lean into, and I'm a broken record, but if you talk to a neurologist and you say, well, we got this EEG here, and they don't trust whoever read it, and they're going to say, this is just what I'm hearing around here is that, well, not everybody's trained the same way on
Mhm.
how to read it, so there's no standardization, forget about it. All I'm looking for is a seizure. Do you think we
Right.
ever get to the point where neurologists would buy in to an EEG?
I don't want to speak for neurologists.
Okay, I
I
said it.
think you said it. I think we will have to. I think neurology, like every other field, is going to need to integrate this or be swept up by it. And I think one of the things you point out is interesting for a number of reasons that the gold standard for noticing for seeing a paroxysm, a spike, a sharp wave, whatever, is a neurologist looking at it. And I could see them, you could see them. There are absolutely uh, uh, softwares that can pick them up, but that's not good enough. And in some ways, I think it shouldn't be. That said, another thing that you're suggesting is that different neurologists may disagree on it. I mean, if you talk to Rusty Turner, for example, who a neurologist we all know so well, he doesn't always agree, or sometimes he's not sure at what he's seeing and how to interpret it. So in some ways, AI can really help to catch it. I think where the clinical skill is coming in is what does it mean?
Hmm.
And there we're always going to disagree, and that's okay. I think it's okay to disagree with these things. I mean, I think progress is made by having disagreements, fair disagreements that kind of push us along to learn more.
Well, here, I'll hit another hot button.
Hmm.
Everybody is doing these EEGs. All this data is out there, and it's all residing in everybody's silo. And we all know if we have an open system, we all share, the more data that goes in it, the better everybody's off. But it's mine, 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 and yours is no good. What do you think we can do to kind of get everybody together? Or is that too
Hmm.
much kumbaya, Saul?
That's kumbaya. Well, we could change human nature.
Okay.
Look, I mean, there are plenty of people out there who are open to sharing and open to that, and there are plenty of people who aren't.
Yeah,
And, if you want a kumbaya statement, we love all of them equally.
that's right.
Um, and so it is a bit of human nature to think that, well, what I believe is the truth. But again, I think ultimately progress is made through disagreement and questioning. If we believe too much in our own PR, I guess, then we do get stuck and we miss things, and that's ultimately a problem.
Well, Jay said something. Jake Unkelman always brings up coopetition, and
Hmm.
market isn't mature enough, even though he's been doing it since 72 and it's got started in the 30s. It's not mature. Um, but we have people out, it's not regulated, so anybody can go out there, buy an amplifier, and
Hmm.
say they can, you know, work wonders, or not wonders, but they can say it.
Hmm.
Maybe it's puffery. I don't know, but
I think it's hard to know, and it's partly hard to know if you look at the public forums like on Facebook, you'll have some that are saying this is the best, this particular system is the best thing since sliced bread, and you'll have other people saying that particular system, ruined my brain forever. And the truth is probably somewhere in between. But I think the idea of working together, it ultimately is the answer. So there are turnkey systems out there that use proprietary algorithms, and that's fine. I mean, the point of a company is to earn money,
mhm.
and that's fine. I have no problem with that. But let us put it to a test. That's the fair question. Don't just tell me your system works because you say it does, or you have X number of people who are giving you good Google reviews. Um, I think these things should be put to test, but and the truth is, we just don't have the resources to do it, even if there was enough cooperation.
Right.
But, little bits and pieces, it happens here and there. So.
All right, fair enough, Saul. So Saul, what talk to me about last year's event. How did that go down? Somebody that just bought a ticket or is about to buy a pass
Mhm.
to enter, how did it go down last year? Any advice that you can give to somebody that's going to be coming in this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really nice conference. And look, of course, I'm going to say that, but the reason I got involved with NRBS is because I like the organization
Right.
and I like the way that people think and people work and the people we bring in to talk and to teach us. So I think this is the first one we're doing live since before the pandemic, so it's going to be different. We had a pretty successful conference last year. It was, all remote. This one will be different, not just because we're meeting live, but the sort of nature of it is being designed both as a conference and as a retreat. So it's actually in a retreat center, not far from the Philadelphia airport. So coming in, you can expect not just to have really great talks, but to really be with this group of people who are there throughout the weekend, and that taking, you could be taking meals together. There's going to be activities. There's some yoga going on. There's meditation. It's on like 25 acres of wooded grounds. I think there are some walks that are being planned. So it's going to be not just the typical really great talks. It's also going to be trying to build a community, try to build our community, and I think that that ultimately is what many of us really hope to do.
Got it. And that Yonkers study, can you just give
Mhm.
a little teaser on that one and we'll let you go because we don't want to give away
Sure.
too much, but
Sure. No, the Yonkers study was done in I want to say it was the sort of um, early to mid 1990s. And it was started by Mary Jo Sabo, and Harry Campbell worked with her. And they convinced a school in Yonkers to allow them to bring neurofeedback in. And if I'm recalling the details, they found that these kids started staying in school more. Their grades were getting better. Their discipline issues reduced. And they really got buy-in from the school. And if I remember correctly, I believe one of the vice principals in the school's child had neurofeedback, and that helped. That was the sort of the entree. But once these kids started doing better, the families really got involved and supported the system, supported the program. So it did begin to do really well. Unfortunately, what happened is September 11th.
yeah.
And after that, they just lost the funding.
Mhm.
Um, at this point, I think there's a couple of other smaller projects. Carrie's trying to not bring biofeedback into schools, but into more public spaces at this point as well. So he's still working at it. But it was a really successful project, and it's, I think, a nice model for what a lot of people want to be doing. I think, the hard thing about doing anything like this is not just getting the equipment. I mean, that's hard enough, or getting people to use the equipment, to work the equipment. It's getting the buy-in from the system. It's very hard to get into, particularly a public school where they just don't have the resources for what they're supposed to be doing. And then we're asking them for a little extra time, a little extra space. But the proof is in the pudding. And if you can prove that what we do works, which we can and we do, then as people learn about that, they become a lot more open. So my hope is that there'll be more projects like this going on.
Well, I would think in the schools, and I know some schools are doing it, just not everybody has complete buy-in, which I don't know how do
Right.
you get everybody to get buy-in, but just teaching kids how to breathe so they can chill out before the day starts. I mean, if you have a health class, don't you think you could weasel it, squeeze it into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is some of that going on. So there are more particularly at high school levels, there are classes in wellness or classes that use meditation. The outcomes don't tend to be great. And I suspect it's because they are getting somebody to teach it who doesn't have a lot of experience. And when you sort of include an entire population, you're getting the kids who can really use it as well as the kids who don't need it so much. So your effects are going to be smaller. Um, but it's there's at least some interest in doing this. And I think again, if we can come in, since we're so evidence-based and
Right.
so driven by that, we can probably improve those findings, those outcomes.
Can't they just put the old school thermometer in their hand and
I would do that. Yeah, I would do that. I mean, it's a little harder with kids
yeah,
because temperature change is slow,
yeah,
but there are ways to do it. Again, I think it takes resources, time, money, personnel, and those
yeah.
are hard to come by these days. But yeah, I do think that it can be done, and come to the conference and see what Harry and Jenna have to say about it, because they're both experienced in doing this, and hopefully they can show us some models that we can begin to follow more.
All right, Saul. So where are we going to send people?
NRBS.org for this conference the first weekend in November.
And mention you heard us on NeuroNoodle, and they'll charge you 10%
Absolutely.
more.
Sure. I will see what I can do about that. Oh, and the other thing is it's going to be if you need continuing ed, we are applying for 10 CECs, American Psychological Association CEs, so that should probably also come through.
And you didn't, Saul, I want them to pay 10% more.
10% more. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'll definitely get that. I can get that one through.
You get
I
that
can
one through? Okay, good.
I'll see if I get the 10% discount because I don't make those decisions, but I can
I,
certainly do it. And I do have to do a plug for the NRBS podcast, of course. That's Healthy
oh,
Brain, Happy
absolutely.
Body, which I host. And we actually have in the first season, I believe, some episodes about the Yonkers Project,
Oh,
where I
we'll put
talk
a
with
link
Mary Jo.
well,
And
right here. We'll put a link to it.
okay, sure, yeah, I'll get that
And
to
then when
you.
I
So.
don't do it, would you send me an email?
I will. I will send you an email with the links and everything. But yeah, it's always great to hear what you're doing, and the live episodes are always fun as well.
Whatever it takes to grow the pie, right?
Absolutely.
If we can get one more person into the network becomes that much stronger. So,
Yeah.
Saul Rosenthal.
Thank you very much for having me on. Always good to talk to you, and hope that we'll see some of your listeners at the conference, either live or remotely.
Say hi to Mitch and Angelika, and of course, Jay and Dr. Marie and everybody in Susan. They wish they could be here, but they're.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they wish they could be here.
All right, Saul, you take care, buddy. Great.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
The NeuroNoodle podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.